Hi YouTube, welcome back. This time I thought I would do another talk video. What this is about, basically off my last video, which was the games I've been playing video, in the comments section I got a lot of responses with regards to the first RPG that I'm playing at the moment, which is Mimana Ayar Chronicles. And there was a lot of people sort of commenting on what games I should play in the RPG genre and what to expect from RPGs, because I was sort of explaining about some of the issues I've had with getting into RPGs, because I'm not really a fan. I mean, I'm trying to become one. I'm trying to get into the genre, but it's not been easy for me. So I had a lot of people commenting on that. I wasn't expecting a lot of people to comment on that particular game. So I figured it was time for a talk. It was time for a Rob talk. And what I want to talk about is my history with the RPG. Essentially, my introduction to RPGs, why it never really took off with me as a kid. And just sort of, share some insight about my own personal gaming history with the RPG. So to begin, the very first RPG that I ever played, and some people could technically say it's not, well, it is an RPG, but it's not an RPG in the traditional sense. And the first game I ever played was Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, on the NES. I played that game. I was about 10 years old, somewhere around that. And at the time I had no idea what an RPG was. I just thought, in my mind, or as I would have called it, as a child, it was just an adventure game. And I remember playing that game because it was from like a 2D, it wasn't like the typical top-down view of most RPGs. This was a side-scrolling view, which was unusual at the time, because obviously the previous Zelda game that had come out was top-down like most RPGs, and this one was a sort of side-scrolling angle. And I remember enjoying it, but I remember getting stuck. I had no idea. I think I got to a point I kept asking all the local townsfolk, all the towns that I would come into, and asking them things, and you talk to them, and I just remember not having a clue. I mean, I didn't get very far. And it was a game that I never owned. It was a friend's game that he'd loaned to me. And I wanted to give it a go, but as a kid, I just didn't really understand it. I just didn't know where to go. I got lost very easily, and I just sort of gave up on it. And that was pretty much all she wrote when it came to me and RPGs in the 8-bit system. I never had anyone that had any RPGs aside from that particular Zelda title. Now moving on, jumping to the 16-bit era. I grew up with the Mega Drive, or the Genesis for most Americans, but I had the Mega Drive. So even though there were RPGs on the Mega Drive, they weren't advertised very heavily, so I didn't know much about there being any RPGs on the Mega Drive. But I was exposed to a few on the Super Nintendo, because I had lots of friends that had Super Nintendos. And one friend of mine in particular, he was very big into RPGs. He was a bit of a nerd. He had he was into like Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff. He was into all of that stuff. Which was stuff that I never shared. I was never into Dungeons and Dragons and any of that. I mean, the mutual interest that we shared was primarily comics, but he used to be big into RPGs. And I remember being at his house, and he was trying to show me, a game that he just really, really loved. It wasn't necessarily about me getting into RPGs. He just wanted to show me a game that he really enjoyed, and the game in question was Secret of Mana. Now I know a lot of people consider it it's considered a game that's very in high regard, and I remember him showing me that game. Now you've got to understand the context here. For me, I was coming off games like Castlevania, Super Probotector, that's Contra. I was coming off all these sort of run and gun side-scrolling games, and then you had games like Street Fighter 2. So I was very much into like sort of side-scrolling run and gun games, or side-scrolling beat 'em ups like Final Fight and Streets of Rage 2. So you got to understand the context here. And I remember him showing me the game. He flipped it on, and I think he started from like a save point or whatever. And I just remember seeing the game for the first time, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is this? Because from what I could tell, from all I could see, was two little figures from a top-down view walking around in what seemed to be an open field with some very serene music playing. It just did not appeal to me whatsoever. I looked at my mate thinking, what the fuck is this? I mean, obviously, he probably didn't go the right way about it in terms of trying to show me this game, because obviously, just turning it on briefly for about 5 or 10 minutes to show me the game isn't really going to paint the game in the best light, because as we all know about RPGs, it's really about the prolonged character development, storyline. It's a process. That is what grabs you. The game is not about RPGs are not about immediacy. It's about prolonged, getting into the storyline slowly but surely. That's what RPGs. They're very slow paced. So for someone like myself who is very into sort of fast paced, quick pick up and play type games, the RPG just had no place for me at that time, because my train of thought then was just games are to pick up and play. They're not. I mean, it's weird saying this now, because obviously in the current gen, most games are 8 to 10 hours long, but back in those days, I only expected to be entertained for a couple of hours at the most, from a game. And it sounds silly now, because games are very expensive, so obviously a lot of us now want a lot more for our money, but back then, as a kid, I only expected to play a game once, for a good couple of hours, and that was that. So I never really thought of games that way, It was just, I was a kid. I didn't really think about it that much. So anyway, skipping on to the next generation, which was the 32-bit era, I got into the Sony PlayStation, which everyone knows was an RPG machine. I mean, the PlayStation had tons of RPGs. But again, for the most part, I pretty much skipped all of them. Right up until Final Fantasy VII dropped. Now, when Final Fantasy VII dropped, I think like most people know, it was a big event. That was the RPG that made fans of a lot of people. And, for a lot of people, that was their first game. And the hype machine for Final Fantasy VII did reach me. I mean, there was a huge campaign advertising Final Fantasy VII, and I remember all the ads. I remember it was a big thing at the time, but I wasn't completely sold on it. It looked good. I loved the sort of steampunk sort of nature of it. It had the very sort of Blade Runner-esque, because I was never really into the sort of fantasy setting. I really liked the sort of futuristic setting of Final Fantasy VII. I really did like it, but it wasn't really enough for me to sort of go out and get it. I didn't rush out to get it on day one or anything like that at all. But I did get it in the end. I finally did get round to getting it. I bought it brand new, but I got it sort of after the hype. So when I picked up my copy, it was a platinum copy. A greatest hits for the Americans. So I got my platinum copy, and I really wanted to give it a shot, because everyone was telling me it was great, and it looked great. So I did give it a shot. I played it. I played the first disc. I got quite far into it. I spent quite a few hours into it, but then I got to a point in it with the turn-based battle, and I just couldn't beat the boss. I just couldn't get past this one bit, and it really frustrated me, and I just didn't know what to do. I mean, in hindsight, I mean, you have to understand as well is that I didn't really understand the concept of grinding. I didn't know that I had to essentially go out and grind and build up my experience points, because I was going in there. I played this game blind. I had no prior knowledge, pretty much, of RPGs. I was going in there blind. I didn't have a playthrough guide. I didn't have anything like that. So I gave up on it, and that was pretty much all she wrote up until now. You know, so yeah, that's pretty much been my experience with RPGs, and I've sort of realised, you know, that I mean, I just sort of thought at the time, I just thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to stick to my lane, you know, play the games that I like, and that is it, you know. I never thought about RPGs again. It was only until I sort of started becoming more of a collector that I wanted to sort of get into some of these RPGs, because obviously as I've gotten older, I suppose I've gotten more mellower, maybe, I don't know, and I just sort of like story-based gaming. I like a lot of the story-based games that come out on the current gen systems that are not RPGs but are more story focused. So I've become more, my mentality has changed quite a lot. So I figured, you know, well, a lot of people rave about a lot of these RPGs, so why not give them a shot now, you know? And that's it, basically. That is the reasons why I never got into RPGs. I suppose you could say I had a lot of false starts with RPGs. I mean, you know, just to summarize, you know, the first time I didn't really know what an RPG was. And let's be honest now, Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link wasn't exactly the best start either. Secret of Mana, you know, I know everyone thinks it's a great game, but I think my friend could have possibly didn't do the best job in sort of showing me exactly why the game was great. And of course, Final Fantasy VII, I just went in there blind. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how to really deal with it. So yeah, that's it. So thanks very much for sticking around and listening to me babble. But yeah, that is basically it. I hope it gives people a better insight into my train of thought, and why at the moment I'm trying to sort of put more focus and trying to learn more and play a bit more RPGs. But there is one thing I do need to say though. Saying all this, there is one style of RPG that I do play, and that is the strategy RPG. Because I think about a year or two ago, I played Advance Wars, and I really loved that game. I had it emulated on my phone, and I loved it. So I do like the sort of Advance Wars, and I guess Fire Emblem, because I hear that's the same style of game. I've never played one, but I do plan on playing it. I like those styles of RPGs, I suppose you could say. Those sort of appeal to me a lot. I do like those ones, but obviously the turn-based RPGs, the more traditional RPGs that most people think of, are the ones that I had issue with. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And of course, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear if there was any, I don't know, guys, maybe make a response video or something. I'd love to hear what genres of gaming that you never clicked with, that maybe you're trying to get into now. You know, just drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you guys think, and what games, what genres that you guys had problems getting into. So anyway, guys, thank you very much, and I will be back next time. Bye bye.